Let's get directly into audience questions for the week. You can send these in really however you want, but the best way is to use the contact form at davidpakman.com. Put audience question in the subject. Maybe your question will be answered next week. First question today: how, if at all, will the virus pandemic affect the 2020 election? Well, there's there's two ways to answer that. It depends who can take credit or avoid blame for what happens between now and the election that is attributed to COVID-19. So, as an example, if we continue to see stock markets decline and there's a global economic slowdown that's attributable to COVID-19, then it's quite feasible that it will negatively affect Donald Trump's reelection chances. And as I've said before, a lot of this stuff is perception. The perception of the economy is a top voting influence when you think about what is going to motivate people to get out and vote or not to vote, to go out and try to reelect the president versus try to remove a president. And often the perception is not actually in line with the reality, but that's effectively irrelevant. So if Donald Trump, scenario one, COVID-19 is effectively controlled over the next few months, and Donald Trump can take credit for it. He's already taking credit for it, even though things are getting worse and worse. That is likely to help Donald Trump's reelection in that the sort of average voters may at least see Donald Trump as not having made the problem worse and presided maybe over it being resolved, if you believe that's the path forward. If COVID-19 continues to spread and the stock market continues to not do well, and there start to be broader economic concerns, that perception, regardless of its reality, is likely to hurt Donald Trump. Remember that back in 2008, when the economy started to implode in advance of the November 2008 election, that did, at that late stage in the election campaign of Barack Obama, it did help him. It did help Democrats late in that race. There's also the idea that not only would COVID-19 continuing to spread and claim more lives, every single one of them tragic and horrible, it's possible that this will not only hurt Donald Trump because he will be seeing us dealing with it poorly, but it's also conceivable that it will remind people of how our healthcare system is fundamentally not working. Remember that we heard from Donald Trump's head of Health and Human Services last week saying, if and when we have a cure and or vaccine for COVID-19, it may not be affordable to everybody. And that is very much front and center in putting people sort of in the mindset that maybe a different healthcare system would be better suited to deal with something like this. If you are a wealthy person who has no problem affording care, you are still at risk if poorer people can't afford care, screening, treatment, are avoiding going in to get checked, which might lead to being diagnosed, which might lead to self-quarantine, walking around, going to work because they can't afford not to. So there is also a way in which COVID-19 could very much backfire on Donald Trump. It could become Donald Trump's Katrina, so to speak. And then there's the very sort of macabre practical reality, which is every candidate that's running right now, including Donald Trump, is either over 60 or over 70. Amy Klobuchar is almost 60 years old. They're out there all the time shaking hands with people. If this continues to spread, there is also the mathematical reality that any or many of the candidates could themselves be affected personally by catching COVID-19. And that's another question mark altogether. So there's no doubt, particularly as we see the numbers not improve and worsen in many ways, that COVID-19 could play a role in November of 2020. Who it helps, who it hurts, is certainly of political significance. And my priority is, no matter what Don Jr. says, people on the left don't want anybody to die because of COVID-19. It was so irresponsible for him to say that. It was so irresponsible for Mike Pence not to immediately say, I don't believe any of our elected officials are looking for people to die. Michael Pence did not do that. And that's a horrible reality as well.